A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 69.
Welcome to a Swift Kick in the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. And today we discuss Robert Greene's best-selling book, The 48 Laws of Power, Law 25, Recreate Yourself. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. Thanks a lot. This is a very interesting chapter of the laws of power, I think.
Yes, I agree. I think it's very fitting for our show, too.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Let's just start out with the judgment. I think that's what we pretty much do
Okay.
with each of these. So the judgment for chapter 25 or law 25 is do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem even larger than life.
Nice. I especially like the word foist. That's
Yeah.
one you don't normally say, but I'm going to try to use that this week.
Okay. We'll keep count and see how many times we get to use it.
Yeah.
But so many of us, I think, feel kind of set in our ways or cast, in a certain mold. And I think that this chapter is really about breaking the mold, but also creating a lasting impression of yourself upon others. And if you look, especially in the entertainment world, you see artists recreating themselves all the time. Think of Prince, for example. Prince had a certain image or a certain brand that he created for himself, and he recreated himself through his music, but the impression that he left, I think, on all of us was, very consistent throughout his career. He loved the color purple, right?
Right.
So he kept that as a constant. But can
And
we?
he also became not Prince, right? When he became a symbol.
Right. It's I think it's very interesting. Now, I was not fortunate enough to know Prince. I didn't know him. I only know of his music and the impression that he left with us. But who he is as an artist. And I think that that's part of what this chapter or this law really talks about, is about creating an image for yourself that's larger than life, that that people know even if they don't know you.
It makes sense. Makes sense. Speaking of Prince, you ever seen Diet Dr. Pepper runs a spot now with Little Sweet, and they
Oh,
they
yeah.
created this character before Prince died, and I still see him running because it's just a total knockoff of Prince. He has a little bandana, he pops out and he sings a little tune, and yeah,
It's kind of like a Michael Jackson thing going, right? Too.
yeah, he's
He's got
a little bit, but he has more of that sexy charm that he tries to put on the ladies as Little Sweet.
Yeah, and he drives off with the cat. That's so funny. Anyhow, the world looks at us, kind of assigns us roles in life, and our show is about creating positive change in your own life. So I think this chapter is important because it's telling us to, not not settle for the role that's been given to you. You can change that role. It's up to you. And we play many roles in life, but this is your opportunity to forge your own identity and make one of your own making that has no boundaries. No boundaries as society sets. You create your own boundaries. I think that's very important when you're talking about positive change.
Sure. And this chapter really deals with becoming an actor, seeing yourself as an actor and playing a role and changing, creating whatever role you want, the role that you want to appear. Because, like John said before, you're born and we're kind of designated roles from our parents, the siblings, the kids in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
your school, then when you get your first job. And some of those might not be the role you want, or some, you're an innocent little kid and you don't know how to handle situations, and then that kind of like creates a snowball effect that leads into adulthood. So now's the time that you can actually change and say, wait a second, I don't have to, I can choose how I react to certain situations. And even if I have to become like an actor, eventually I'll become that role. One of the things that they, or three of the things they say, three ways to become a consummate chameleon. Can I read those off, John?
Consummate communion.
Consummate chameleon.
Go ahead.
Basically changing the roles in your face and so forth. One is you must learn to enlarge your actions through dynamic techniques such as surprise, suspense, or the creation of sympathy and symbolic identification. We just talked about with Prince. Or think about Bruce Wayne when he was trying to decide when he was becoming Batman, he needed a symbol and he picked the bat to strike fear into the heart of men, right?
Yeah.
Number two is you must constantly be aware of your audience, of what will please them and what will bore them. So know who you're dealing with and know what role that applies to that situation. Number three, you must arrange to place yourself at the center to command attention and never be upstaged at any cost.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just to dive a little bit deeper on what you said in the beginning, Tom. uh, there are things in our life that we cannot change about ourselves. We can't change who our parents are. We can't change our upbringing, the environment that we were raised in. All those things are really outside of our control. We're born into that, or somehow we end up in there, in that environment by some other force other than ourselves, and we can't change that. But you can change a lot about yourself, and you can get yourself out of those environments if you so choose. You see time and time again about people who were born extremely poor, in very bad circumstances, maybe had abusive parents, and they they changed themselves and got out of that. I know I talked about an artist about Prince earlier, but David Bowie is also one of these artists I think that really stand out as far as recreating himself. Uh, but if you look at him, there are some consistencies. Like, he was always in fashion. He was always on the cutting edge of of what he wore, and even his music was very much on edge. That made up. He created himself, and Ziggy Stardust, and starting out in these kind of gender neutral ways. Is he a boy? Is he a girl? No one knew. That was really out there back in the 70s. No one was doing that. But he changed and he evolved over time. And I think that this law too is all about transformation. It's about evolution and treating yourself like a piece of clay that you can mold. Um, Tommy and I were into bodybuilding a lot in high school and afterwards, and that too is focusing on aspects of your physical appearance that you don't like, and chiseling away, working at that to get somewhere better or look better or whatever you're trying to do.
It's interesting you say that because I was just thinking of a celebrity that has done this over and over, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, first as
Yeah.
bodybuilder and forming himself into the perfect body and becoming Mr. Olympia, then becoming an actor, and later, I think he's even dabbled in producing and directing. If I'm not, if I'm, I think I'm right on that. But after he's also become an entrepreneur, and then he became a politician, and he's always constantly changed
Yeah.
himself, and he's been good. He's been, what he does, he excels at.
Yeah, this is about taking control. It certainly is about, you know, taking control and leading a life that you want to live. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great example. Um, he's always had a very good business mind, and I understand he was investing in real estate and be, even I think during his weightlifting years.
Yes.
Um, you know, we're many things. We every person is multifaceted. There's more than one side to each and every one of us, and you can cultivate and manipulate. I hate to say that, but you're talking about yourself. You can change yourself in ways that can help you lead a better life.
I tell you, he became such a wealthy guy because he's very smart. I was listening to an interview with him where they had an earthquake in California, and he decided, hey, this would be a great time to, Franco Colombo, his best friend, was a mason, and he was, he did masonry work and with bricks and so forth. And he was like, I bet we can make a killing, rebuilding chimneys because all these houses chimneys are busted. So he would get him and all the bodybuilders that worked out at Gold's Gym to be their labor force, because none of them really worked. They just hung around and lifted weights. So it was easy to all of a sudden have a mass of an army of guys to lift weight. I mean, lift bricks for you. And he would go and he would haggle with the people. Like they'd charge like $5,000 in order to do this brick fireplace, and the people would be like, well, that's really excessive. And Franco Colombo would speak Italian, and he'd act all upset and start yelling. And Arnold would be like, hey, look, I'd like to do it for you cheaper, but this guy's an artist, and he's the real deal, and he doesn't like your deal. And they would go back and forth and play like good cop and bad cop, and that's how he promoted his business. And then he got that money to invest in like condominiums and apartment buildings later on.
Yeah, and like you said, this is also about playing a role. It's being an actor and using that to your advantage. My dad used to always say, "People only know what you tell them." So if you're, you know, these techniques, bad cop, cop, bad cop, these techniques have been used throughout time, and people have been recreating themselves uh, throughout time.
John, a good time to actually recreate yourself, there's a couple of them. Sometimes is maybe if you're a student when you go to a new school, or if you're going
Yes.
from high school to college, it's a great time to shake off maybe some of those negative connotations that you picked up as a kid and create a fresh start. Same thing as if you start a new job. Um, you know, think about who you want to be seen as, because most of the people that you're going to be in your workplace, they don't know you. So it's a chance to have a clean slate and start over. Another one is when you change towns. If you go somewhere else, start fresh. Create who you want to be rather than bringing all that baggage with you.
Yeah, a friend of mine and we're talking earlier today about something very similar this time, and we're talking about just talking about life in general and how can people know what they really want in life if they haven't done it before? A lot about what you want and what you don't want out of life. I mean, we all have a lot of people have very lofty goals and they never seem to reach them. uh, or they have very lofty goals and they work very hard and diligently and get there, and then they realize that's really not for them. That's really not what they wanted. uh, the only way to know for sure whether you like something or you don't is to go out there and do it, or have it, or be it. um, knowing that comes through experience. So this is all really part of it. Sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. uh,
You know where I see that is dating. think about
Oh, yeah.
when you're younger, right? You you kind of like don't care. You're not very, particular. Is like, oh yeah, as long as they're pretty or good looking, that's okay, and we get along and we have some fun. But as you get older, you understand what you don't want. I mean, so I could understand if I would not want to be dating at my age right now, because I would think that it would be very difficult, because you're bringing baggage, they're bringing baggage, and it's hard to find, I think, what you want, because you're so picky now, because you've learned, like you said, you know what you don't want, and you've kind of learned what you want through the years.
I think back about when I was dating, and what I really remember is thinking, I hate playing games. I'm not going to, I'm going to be straightforward. I'm not going to, I'm going to be open and honest, and I'm not going to play any games. But you really don't have much of a choice. You have to play these games. That's how you get to know people. And through over time, that's really the only way to prove if you were right or wrong, or had the right impression. um, We're all playing different roles, and and it's through these games that we play that you learn the most about people. It's easy to be a friend during good times. The way you find your best friends are through difficult times. The people that stick with you, that see things through, that help you. When they have no other reason to help you but that you're their friend. Uh,
And the friend has a choice to do that.
right.
That's when when you're presented with that situation, that's where you decide, is this what a good friend would do? And but not everyone does that. Some people just go, it's too much of a bother, and that's it. That's, sometimes the friendship dissolves.
Yeah. Or they have, I had a very good friend. I hate to say too many specifics about it, but she was a girl. We were never involved, but we were very, very good friends. And I knew in the back of my mind that that relationship was very one-sided. Things were always on her terms, like, you know, doing the things she wanted to do, or going over to her house, or it was always on her terms. And I kind of just, I knew it and I accepted it. I think the sign also of a good friend is that you accept people for who they are with all their faults, and you like them regardless. um but it was one very one-sided, and I think I was fooling myself about that relationship. And I have not spoken to her. I mean, we had a falling out. There was a piece of hay that broke the camel's back. um but after 25 years of friendship, and I recognized at that point, that I had really been fooling myself. I had not been, I knew this was the case. I knew it was a one sided relationship. And then it was, she did something that ruined it for me, and I could never be friends with her. And I recognized then I did not want people like that in my life. I need a two-way relationship. Friendships are give and take, and that was just one side. It was not good for me. So the reason I bring this up is that, think about your own situations and be honest with yourself. And it's difficult, I think, sometimes to be honest with yourself and admit, um, we may know things, but we don't really accept them as being true.
Here's another one, John, that I think everyone could probably relate to, is your relationship with your family, and especially your parents, if they're still in your life. I remember, my father's gone now, but I remember when after the military, I moved back in with him temporarily. And, I was with my parents, and they would ask me like where I was, and it was almost like I reverted back to the high school kid with my mentality. It'd be like, why do you want to know? Like kind of like having an attitude. And it's almost like you become like a teenager again, and you
Right.
still have that relationship. Even though you're older and you're more mature, you still tend sometimes to fall back into an old way of behavior.
Routine, right?
Yeah, yeah, because you're so used to reacting that way with that certain person. Where if it was someone else, maybe of their age, you would not never act like that. But because the familiarity with the person, you act a certain way. And like I said, I find that I see it with my wife. You know, way she reacts with her mom. Sometimes she reminds me of a teenage girl and getting along with her mother. And you carry those relationships on. You have the choice to change that. That's that role that we're played in. And I know I'm guilty of it because the same thing happens sometimes with my mom. It's almost like uh I need to change my perception of how I react with her rather than you know just just falling into old habits.
You know, Robert Greene, the author of the 48 Laws of Power, mentions the character you seem to have been born with is not necessarily who you are based on characteristics you have inherited. Your parents, your friends, and your peers have all helped to shape your personality. And he talks about taking control of that process and stop allowing others to limit you and mold you. Uh, and that's when he really goes into, working on yourself like an artist molding clay should be one of your greatest and most pleasurable tasks in life. And you and I both know this, Tom, that we do look at ourselves as clay, as being moldable and growing as people. And we don't claim to be perfect. No one is perfect. Life is about growing and evolving and learning, and that's why we do this show, to help our listeners in their journey as well. So look at yourself as an artist who is constantly evolving and constantly recreating yourself. We build, mankind has really stood upon the shoulders of giants, they say. We all learn from each other. uh, and there's no point in being someone that you really don't want to be. You do have power to change that.
I agree. Robert Greene also talks about some steps in the process of self creation. He has three of them. The first one is you must be self conscious. He says, being aware of yourself as an actor and taking control of your appearance and emotions.
Yeah,
Number
and on that note, be aware of how you present yourself to the outside world. The way, kind of step out of yourself for a moment and look at how other people may view you, or things that you've said. you know um, Communication is key. But what one word means to you might mean something quite different to another person. I always talk about, you know um, I use dogs as an analogy, saying, you and I are talking about dogs. We both love dogs, and we're talking. And the more that we talk, the more I recognize, what, I think this guy's talking about something different. I'm thinking German Shepherd, and you're thinking Chihuahua.
It
They're
would be
both don't.
Labrador, my friend.
What was?
It would be Labrador, my friend.
Yeah, I know. But you get the point. Same thing with chili. We're talking about, chili. Um, my wife is from Ohio, and she loves the Skyline chili that has like chocolate and cinnamon in it. And
See, now I thought you were talking about a country.
yeah, see, right there. It's what I view as chili is something quite different than what my wife views. When she's like, "Oh yeah, chili," I'm like, "Oh yeah, chili." She turns her nose at the stuff I make because it's got beans and meat and it's Texas style.
Right.
But so be aware that just because you're using the same words doesn't necessarily mean they mean the same things, that they're defined the same way.
Right. So step number two is you must learn self control. Adopt the plasticity of an actor who can mold his face or emotion to what is required. Any comment about that, John?
Yeah. I'm looking at my notes. I'm probably off on that, but yes, you definitely do need to, mold yourself. And, going back to either Prince or David Bowie or Arnold Schwarzenegger, they always present s- there's a consistency about their image and what they present. Arnold is definitely about strength, and Prince is purple, but you never saw pictures of Prince like dressed in blue jeans and a t-shirt. He's always just dressed to the T. Same thing with David Bowie. He wore different fashions throughout his life, but he was always fashionable. It wasn't like most of the people you see out in the world wearing jogging pants and a old ratty t-shirt and running shoes or something like that. You never see pictures of the stars like that. They always present a very consistent
Unless it's in a
thing.
tabloid, and that's why those pictures sell so well, because people want to take them off the pedestal and be able to be relatable and say, "Hey, wow,
Yeah,
this person
yeah,
has problems worse than me." It makes them
yeah.
feel good.
But it's part of that brand, I think,
Sure.
and how you represent yourself is really your own brand.
All right. So step number 3 was the creation of a memorable character, a character that compels attention, that stands out above the other players on the stage.
Yeah, dra- uh, drama takes place over time, and think of it as an unfolding of events. Um, life evolves, and it does take time. Change does take a period of time to accomplish. In some ways, you never ever reach the end until the day you die. We're constantly changing. Um, so it's don't expect this to happen overnight. Change yourself in small ways. I'm sure actually if you look back on pictures of yourself over the years going back, um, you'll see how you've changed over time, uh, how the styles of clothes that you wore. I mean, think about us in high
Hopefully.
school, Tom. You know, the parachute pants and the
Yeah,
Capizio
hopefully, because
shoes and the
Vans tennis shoes with the checkerboards
yeah.
pattern on it.
I remember in college, I was like, I hate to say this, but I had really long hair in college, and I was kind of tired of messing with it. So I had the back of my hair from like my ears down permed. My dad told me I looked like a poodle. He's like, and
Hey, that
I
that was popular back in the 80s. I remember my brother did that, and my brother-in-law did the same
that
thing.
was last year, Tom. I'm just kidding.
I thought you were gonna tell me you just had a mullet, and
I
you thought you
did
were
have
back
a
in there.
mullet. Yeah, I mean, I
I think
was
we
trying
all
to
kinda
beat
had
around the
it.
bush.
Yeah, I had one
It,
at one time too, and I had long hair, and then you go to the barber shop, and it's the '80s, so all of a sudden they're making it short on top and long in the back. Yeah,
business up front, party in the back.
that's right.
Yeah, that was certainly memorable, and that is about creating a memorable character and being interesting and different. It's so funny. I think back about in the '90s, when I was it the '90s? I guess it was. I was in Atlanta and single and hitting these clubs, and there was this club that had different sections, and they had heaven, hell, and purgatory.
Sure. Yeah, we had
And
that down here too.
and all the like goths went there, and these people, like this group was trying to be different. Like they're all wearing black, they all had their hair a certain way, and they're doing that to be different. And I got that. So they didn't, I would go in there wearing jeans and a polo shirt, and I really stood out. I really was different. And and hopefully these these people who were claiming to, they wanted to stand out of the crowd, they weren't standing out in the crowd at all. They were they were doing the same. They were just conforming to a different norm, I guess.
It's funny because when I used to go out to clubs when I was younger, I typically frequented places where they'd have the guys with the short hair, the polo shirts, the girls with the teased up hair, and that wasn't my style because I had like a rocker style going on. When I went into those places, like there used to be a one down here called the Squeeze. Same thing. It would always have like black light, and nose people had nose rings and tattoos and spiked hair and mohawks. That's where I always scored good. But my friends hated going there because my friends all had the short hair polo look. They're like, man, I just don't do good here. And then meanwhile, I was the only one that was picking up chicks there. I hated going to the other places because like the sports bars, it just didn't fit my style, and I really had a harder time meeting girls.
Well, that changed, Tom, and you're happily married, my friend.
Oh yes, yes. I'm just going through. Something that's really is really a good skill builder is it's a class that I had when I was younger in school. I took theater and improv because it really helps you with
Yes.
those situations where they throw something at you and it's unexpected and you have to react to it and come up with a scenario. And I think it really helps you think on your feet. So if you ever get a chance, or our audience to take a good improv class, don't think it's worthless. It's good for something. However, I do remember being very embarrassed in our theater class. They made us go out in the courtyard and reenact a Greek play, right? And I had forgot my lines, so I wrote them on my hand. And I'm standing in this courtyard, and there's people like writhing all over the ground like snakes, and no one knew what we were doing. It wasn't like we just went. Our professor made us go out in the courtyard and do this, and we're saying all these lines, and I was like so embarrassed. But I remember holding my hand out in front of me, like I'm giving a great speech, like I'm orating. But meanwhile, I was only doing that so I could read the lines off my hand.
Um, that's so funny. It just totally derailed my thought thinking of you too. And
I'm a bad influence. I think of my kids, and I'm always like saying things to my son, and I'm like, yeah, when we were young, we did this. We were really bad little kids sometimes. The things that we did are not bad, but just mischievous. And it's like my son doesn't even think of these things. He's like, shakes his head, like, man, my dad.
I wanted where I got derailed on is you've suggested acting classes, and I think that's really good. Another thing that you could do is join a local Toastmasters class.
Yes.
Now, giving, public speaking is one of, it's like one of the top fears of people. But we all we need to learn how to communicate better, and communicating in front of a group and an audience, it still gives me butterflies, and I'll get nervous about that even in a comfortable circumstance. The difference is that I don't let that stop me, and I've learned to, control myself through taking Toastmasters. But they had an impromptu section to where they would yell out a subject or something, and you'd have to talk about it for 5 minutes. And that's practicing and doing that. Yeah, you're gonna suck in the beginning, but you will get better over time, and that is a very good skill that you can develop. um, as you know, I could talk about just about anything now, but
Yeah,
I
when you
wasn't always that way.
think about it, speaking well is like a superpower because your ability to influence and persuade people for anything, whether it's selling something if that's your job, or winning a job on an interview, or picking out wooing your spouse or your soon to be lover. I mean, it's all based on words. That's why I've known some guys that were just like dumpy pieces of crap, but they were good talkers, and they were just like they'd have these beautiful women, and you'd be like, how the hell did that guy get that girl? And it was
Why would
all
you
because they
talk
had to
about
get
me
them.
like
Yeah.
that, Tom?
Yeah.
Why would you talk about me?
I'm thinking of
And
one of my old bosses that he just like every girl. It was just like, I was like, what is this guy? He's like Don Juan, but he's just like, he looks like Mario from Mario Brothers. I don't understand.
yeah, I had a friend of mine who looked like Moe the bartender from The Simpsons,
Yeah,
but he was smooth with the ladies, and I couldn't believe the dates that he went on. Um, and again, it was how he held himself, how he held himself. Sorry.
maybe there's something else you don't know about.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that could be true, but he the way he carried himself, the way he was able to communicate with women. I mean, he had a lot of luck uh, with the ladies, and hey, more power to you. It just proves it's looks are not everything. Um, it's the impression uh, that you leave that's more important, I think.
True.
But yeah, I would agree with you. All the world's a stage. We're merely players,
That's right, man.
performers, and portrayers. Um, Not my words, the words of Neil Peart from Rush. Um, so learn to play many roles, um, and be whatever you need to be based on that whatever that situation is and what you're trying to do, it what that requires. You know, as a parent, I have to be in that parental role all the time. My kids might say something, and I have to tell them, yes, that's not a good thing. But in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, yeah, where I'm laughing at it. Uh,
Do as I say, don't do as I do.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, John, I think that we've about wrapped it up. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that's about it. I guess the great way to finish is about um, the section of reversal
Sure.
in this law. Now,
Hold on.
Reversal of the law.
You didn't even see my lips move.
I didn't I didn't hear what it said, but in the laws of power, they give a section on reversal, and for recreating yourself, they say there is no reversal. And let me just it says, I'll just read it because I disagree with what this is saying there can be really no reversal to this critical law. Bad theater is bad theater. Even appearing natural requires art. In other words, acting. Bad acting only creates embarrassment. Of course, you should not be too dramatic. Avoid the histrionic gesture, but that is simply bad theater anyway, since it violates century old dramatic laws against overacting. In essence, there is no reversal. And I think, Tommy, you already mentioned um, that you can break free of the roles that you're in. You can turn a new leaf. Um, you can move. You can move away. You can change schools. You could change your work. There are opportunities in life to reverse whatever role that you're in. Look at the soap opera actors. Their character died. Okay, they were murdered, and they're in the next episode, coming in as another character, a totally another character, and this happens time and time and time again.
That was my evil twin brother to die, not me.
Yeah, but and sometimes they acknowledge it with the evil twin, and sometimes it's not even mentioned. They're just like a totally new person. Um, this happens in life. You can recreate yourself, and think about this. Think about be aware of your own situation and what you're trying to do and how you present yourself to others.
Hey, when you mention bad acting, you can think of a commercial. If you have a good spokesman, it's trustworthy and you believe them, you might like the guy that does the Allstate commercials. The guy he was he played the president in 24. You hear that guy, he has that baritone voice, Allstate, and it's just like he seems like a trustworthy figure. But then I think back to these commercials, and you might remember these, John, when we were kids. There was a lawyer in our town, and I think it was Jeffrey Steiner, and they had these really bad, this guy and girl, and they're like, look, it is Jeffrey Steiner's window is lit up again late at night. Why? Oh, he must be working hard at work on cases. And it's like, it's so laughable. It's like, why am I going to go to this guy? I don't trust the people that, even though I know they're actors, or even in this case of Allstate, the guy from Allstate sounds a little bit more trustworthy. In the back of your mind, you feel confident with him. But the people that are really bad, and you could tell that they're just reading, you don't trust.
Yeah, it's funny. So you like the spokesperson and you trust him, but you don't know that guy from Adam.
Right, right. He's just my impersonation. He's like
It, it's
he's
just the
he's like
impression
James Earl Jones Jr.
that
He
yeah.
just has that deep voice, and you just associate with the grandfatherly type of figure. And naturally, as humans, I think we tend to say, "Oh, this guy. Oh, yeah, and I remember him. I really liked him in 24. So yeah, that must be damn good auto insurance. He was the president."
So I think we can end with um, be open to new possibilities.
Sure.
Be open, and we look forward to future episodes of Laws of Power. We're going to keep moving through these, and we'd love to get any feedback that you have and any questions, comments. Visit us at our website, swiftkickingtheass.com.
And make sure to sign up for our free membership site. The simple spending plan that John created is in there. And we always toss things in there. It's like a little membership hub with some little courses, some videos, some ebooks, and some other action guides. Great place to trade an email for membership. I'm Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Peace.
This is John. Talk to you later.
See ya.